Former Maryland Governor Republican Larry Hogan joined us on Friday with more about what he thinks about the GOP presidential field.
Look, I think there's too many people in the field. You should not be in the race. If you don't make the debate stage, you likely should consider getting out. If you're on the debate stage and you're willing to stand up and challenge the leader, that's at 50%. If you're unwilling to challenge Donald Trump, you should get off the stage. You know, Ramaswamy, for example, is up there being a cheerleader and a fill-in for Trump. He shouldn't be running for president. He should, you know, he obviously is trying to apply for a job for Trump. But if you're in there running for vice president, or you're trying to be a cabinet secretary, or you're trying to become famous or write a book or get on television, you should get the heck out of the race. We need to narrow it down to find a leader who can get the Republican Party back on the right track and that can get us back to winning elections again. It's not going to happen with 11 people in the race.
Who specifically? Former Congressman Will Hurd didn't make the debate stage. Should he get out?
You know, Will is a great friend. I have tremendous admiration for him. I agree with him on so many issues, but he's not going to be president, and he didn't make the debate stage. And I think he contributes a lot to the discussion. He and I see a lot of things eye to eye, but yeah, I don't think that at this point he should be in the race. But I don't want to go through the list of which one should we get out and get in the process.
Time's of the essence,
I think it's a decision they have to make. What I'm having conversations. Most of these folks are friends of mine. I'm talking with other leaders in the party who share this concern, this issue that you're getting to. And I think we're going to have to continue to have those discussions and try to give people the best. I'm giving private advice to many of the people running. I think other leaders are going to come together, and we're going to have to figure out how can we convince people to put aside their own egos and their own goals to just make sure we do the right thing for the country and the party.
How do you force that conversation? It's a difficult one. I've covered politics for years. Most politicians wake up, they look in the mirror, they see a future president. It's tough to have that kind of conversation.
It's very, very tough, which is why it hasn't happened yet. But I'm holding out hope that we'll get this figured out. And you know, my total focus at this point is trying to make sure we can get a challenger that's going to win this nomination, that's not Donald Trump, that can get us back to winning elections again and can win the race in November.
You said you were going to talk to your friends in the traditional Republican wing of the GOP, a party still dominated by Trump. How would you describe the level of concern? Is it quiet concern, a twiddling of the thumbs right now among donors and traditional Republicans, or is there real alarm that it's September and Trump's dominating?
I think there's real alarm, and it's becoming more and more real. I mean, people were somewhat hopeful that we would be in a different place by now. And now they're starting to come to the realization that, hey, we might actually have Donald Trump as the nominee and Joe Biden as the nominee. And this is something that 70% of the people in America do not want. They do not want Donald Trump or Joe Biden. They don't want a rematch. And they don't think these are the two best choices to be running in the race.
What about a late entry from Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia or Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia? It may not be possible to get on the ballot in Iowa and South Carolina and those early states, but could you see a late entry trying to make a play for the convention?
Well, it seems like the opposite of what I've been saying. You know, we've got 11 people in the race. We have 6 of my former gubernatorial colleagues already in the race. I'm not sure whether 1 or 2 more is going to fix the problem. I also just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, they're both great governors. I campaigned and helped both of them. But October 15th is the deadline, and all this talk about somebody's going to get in the end of the year or next year, that's not going to happen. It's 6 weeks away.
Larry Hogan is an honorary co-chair of the bipartisan group No Labels, which could put together a third-party presidential bid.
No Labels is not an effort to try to help Donald Trump and to be a spoiler for Joe Biden. I don't think there's a soul in this organization that's trying to promote Donald Trump. And you know, we don't get into the process and how and why. Basically, you got to figure why are we in this situation? We're in this situation because we have 2 potential terrible nominees of the 2 major parties that 70% of the people in America don't want. That's what No Labels is about. It's a citizen saying, maybe we have to try something else.
To the point you just made, does that mean a Republican like yourself, in your mold, perhaps, or even you, has to be at the top of the No Labels ticket? Should there be a No Labels ticket?
I think we should only put together a ticket in the event that it's Trump and Biden. You know, I'm still trying to work to make sure we can get a good Republican nominee, and it's no longer necessary. But it has to be a good ticket that can actually win. You know, I would only be in it to win it. Nobody's trying to spoil anything. This is about actually receiving a majority of the votes. And I would say the last time we had somewhat of a successful third-party run, It was Ross Perot who dropped out of the race and had all kinds of problems and came back in and still was at about 20%. But he was a Republican who ran as an independent and took, most people would argue, I think he drew from both sides, but it didn't, hurt the Democrat, hurt the Republican.
And the Ross Perot experience in 1992, he gets about 19% of the popular vote, but it's very difficult to win the White House in a system that's the Electoral College. It's
very true. It's, it's something that's never really happened. I mean, but we're at a point where we've never been in America, so we just don't know. And you know that things change. We have 8 months to figure this out. We don't know where we're going to be as a country. We don't know who the potential candidates might be. But it very well may be the first time in our history where the American public is really hungry for something like this.
If people are frustrated with the Democrats and the Republicans, maybe they are looking for an alternative. But No Labels, the group you're the honorary co-chairman of, has not released its list of donors. They're under the cloud of the election law where they can not be disclosed to the public. Do you believe No Labels now or at some point in the future is going to have to offer Americans clarity about who's spending money on No Labels in order to win the public's trust if they want to move forward?
Sure. Well, it's a tax-exempt, grassroots citizen organization, just like thousands of others, and that's just what the rules are. They're not a political party. They don't have a candidacy they're behind. They're not backing anyone. If, in fact, it became a campaign, they obviously would have to follow all the same rules that all the rest of the campaigns do. But right now, there's just an awful lot of attacks and criticism because they're really worried that this kind of citizen uprising is gaining a lot of traction, and they're really concerned about the two weak nominees that they might be faced with.
Well, to your point, there's concern, especially among allies of the White House, that a Democratic independent ticket would pull from Biden. But let's be real. If Trump is going to end up, looks like the nominee come January or February of next year, are you, Larry Hogan, open to being atop a No Labels ticket as a Republican-type candidate with No Labels?
It's not something I'm pursuing.
I know it's not. We know you're not pursuing it. But is it at
I'm
least
hoping we
open
don't
door?
get to that point. I have not closed the door to that. If I believe that we can actually win the race, we have a strong ticket, that those two major candidates are weak, we might have to try to pull off something that's never been done, which is sort of what I did in Maryland.
Do you believe there's actually going to be a No Labels ticket or not next year?
I think there's a good likelihood that there could be. I don't know the odds, and there's a lot of things that have to happen. Again, I'm still hopeful that I'm not sure sitting here today that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are the two nominees of the major parties, or whether this ever lifts off the ground. But if in fact that's the case, I do believe that this group has a chance to get access to the ballot in all 50 states. And if they put together, a really great ticket and ran a perfect campaign, that they would actually have a shot to be not just a spoiler, but to be in it to win it.
Former Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland, we appreciate you coming by Face the Nation.